here we have a painting called St. Hildegard's Psaltery. And this one also is not the original. The original is at another location. And St. Hildegard is a real person in history that I came across who I was fascinated by because she lived in an era, the late 1100s into the early 1200s, and she lived in an era that women didn't have a lot of power or a lot of ability to influence, and yet she absolutely did. She was a composer, she was an author, she was a healer, she was a nun, and she started her own monastery, which was also fairly unheard of for women to do. And she was a musician, so that's why this is the psaltery. This music instrument is called the psaltery, and she talked about having visions, and so that's how a lot of her knowledge and beliefs came to her, was through visions. Which that also was, if she hadn't have been a nun, she might have been accused of being a witch or something along those lines. But she described having been approached, sort of, but not necessarily, she didn't use the word angels, but the divine knowledge was given to her directly. And so that's what, in my imagination, I used an angel, an angelic figure, and she's sort of teaching St. Hildegard the psaltery. That's not really what happened. I think she learned it the normal way, but I thought it would be fun that, to sort of create an image that this person's imparting knowledge, imparting creative energy on St. Hildegard. And she used herbs in her healing. She did herbal healing. She used animals in her healing, very tied to nature. And that's why she's sitting here with her book she's writing in, like I said, in an era that women typically weren't allowed to be authors. So she's just a really amazing figure, and sort of shows that even throughout history, even with such oppression, there's figures whose voice is still heard. In fact, I think that's what, when I first heard about her, what struck me is her music is that she composed is still being played today. And that's, like I said, the 1100s. So that's a long time for music to last for. I mean, there was no CDs, or the fact that the music on paper and the music that people heard and played by ear is still being played today. I think is just really amazing. This piece is called, this is Nature's Justice under the new EPA. This I painted, 2018, and it is just sort of a commentary on the immediate cuts that happened to the EPA, and sort of the immediate, I would call, like, taking away their power, taking away what they can do, and in fact even putting some people in charge of it that were specifically there to dismantle the EPA. They're really there to undo what had already been done in terms of safety and protection for wildlife and wild lands. And it already wasn't enough. We already were, sort of seeing extinctions and land being built on at, that shouldn't have been already. And so then when Trump placed people at the head of the EPA that undid that even further, it's the damage might be irreversible. And I think, we've been hearing so much these days about global warming and people's sort of footprint on the earth. And I think some people take it seriously, some don't. There's sort of this like ticking time going on, a time bomb or clock going, ticking down, and they have so long to sort of step back and stop damaging things. But some people don't believe that. And I think if people spend a lot of time in nature, especially if you've been doing it for many decades, you can see the changes. They're subtle. So it's maybe easy to believe that they aren't happening. I notice things even myself. I grew up in Hadley. We used to have tons of praying mantises every year, all over the place. I haven't seen a wild praying mantis in decades. And you notice little things like that. Certain species are slowly disappearing or quickly disappearing, but maybe not in a way that people are noticing. And that's kind of I guess how it happens. And I traveled to Ireland a few years back and was really struck at how little they have there. I asked a lot of questions about wildlife and plant and tree species and what's there. I was really shocked to learn that so much of it was hunted out or destroyed long ago. And it really made me aware of what we have here that we should be protecting. That's sort of like where we could end up if we don't do things now. I know in the, I believe it was the 70s, we had a lot of major cleanups go on that really turned things around in the rivers for so many species and the land around the rivers, surrounding the rivers as well. You had species of fish and bugs and things and plants that were really ready to just go and be gone. And these measures that people took turned that around to the extent that some of those fish species are now really abundant. And so if we're able to do that, with those particular rivers, we can do that with everything. And to see that the change that happened means that, we are having an effect. We're having good effects, we're having bad effects. We do have effects. We really need to pay attention to that. And so that's what these species in the back are endangered. They're all endangered species. This is buffalo clover. Those are the turtle. This is the woodpecker. They're all endangered except for the vulture. He's not endangered. But he is holding the Constitution again. And you have, the American flag disintegrating with oil dripping down it and disintegrating and getting turned into gold and money. Because unfortunately, money and oil tend to take priority over our resources. And hopefully we'll turn that around as well.